Bernard being alive is not the real twist in Silo Season 3, Episode 4. The real twist is that the show may have been preparing us for his survival the entire time and hiding it in plain sight. Because once you start looking at the episode closely, his return stops feeling like a last-minute shock and starts feeling like part of a much larger plan. Before we even get into the details, think about what kind of character Bernard has always been. He is not impulsive. He is not reckless. He is the kind of man who survives by thinking ahead, by controlling information, and by making sure other people only understand the game after he has already made his move. That is exactly why this episode matters so much. It is not just showing us that Bernard is alive, it's forcing us to question whether he was ever really out of control in the first place. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Breakdown Epic. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Now today, we are breaking down why Bernard's survival may be one of the most carefully set up mysteries the show has done so far. Because this episode gives us multiple clues that his disappearance was never as simple as the audience first believed. And the more you line those clues up, the more it feels like the real question is not how did he live, but why did the show want us to believe he was gone? Let's start with the most obvious thing, the way the episode presents his return. The scene does not play like a miracle, and it does not play like a normal resurrection reveal either. The camera does not stop and emotionally underline the shock of it. The story does not rush to explain every practical detail. Instead, his presence feels strangely confident, almost like the show expects us to understand that there is more going on beneath the surface. That choice matters. In a series like Silo, if the writers avoid clearly answering the most immediate question, it is usually because the answer is tied to something bigger that has not been fully revealed yet, and that is exactly what seems to be happening here. If Bernard had really died in the simple, straightforward way people assumed, the show would have given that moment emotional closure. It would have lingered. Other characters would have processed it with more finality, but that never happened. His disappearance created uncertainty, not closure, and in hindsight, that feels deliberate. Now let's bring Sims into this, because his behavior is one of the strongest clues supporting the idea that Bernard's survival may have been known by at least a very small circle. Sims has always been a man built around hierarchy, loyalty, and controlled knowledge. He does not just follow Bernard blindly, he understands the logic behind command, and he has spent years working inside structures where information is compartmentalized for a reason. So when the story starts moving as if Bernard is gone, the important question becomes whether Sims acts like a man who truly believes his leader is dead, or like someone carrying the pressure of a secret he cannot openly share. And this episode leans hard toward the second possibility. His decisions do not feel driven by public grief or confusion. They feel measured, cautious, and strategic. That does not prove he definitely knew Bernard was alive from the start, but it absolutely keeps the door open. And if he did know, then that changes how we read everything. Because now Bernard's absence is not an accident the system is reacting to. It is a condition being managed. That brings us to the bigger theory at the center of the episode. What if Bernard's goal was never simply to survive? What if disappearing was the move? Think about what the rebellion did to the balance of power. Bernard had become the face of control. He was no longer feared because he was hidden or mysterious. He was feared because people knew exactly who to blame. In that kind of situation, staying visible becomes a disadvantage. But if everyone believes you are gone, then the attention shifts, alliances wobble, people stop watching for your next move because they assume there is no next move left to watch. For someone like Bernard, that would be a massive advantage. He has always treated information like a weapon, so allowing others to believe something false about his fate would fit his character perfectly. Not because he enjoys the drama, but because it buys him the one thing he values most, control from the shadows instead of scrutiny in the light. And that is why the hidden spaces beneath the silo matter so much. The episode spends enough time on them to tell us they are not just atmosphere, they are infrastructure, preserved, engineered, intentional spaces that have clearly existed outside the public understanding of the silo for a long time.
If anyone inside Silo 1-8 would know that those spaces exist and how to use them, it would be Bernard. He spent years protecting secrets bigger than himself. He operated at the highest levels of restricted knowledge, so the idea that he had access to contingency routes, emergency shelters, or forgotten maintenance sections is not a stretch at all. In fact, it would almost be more surprising if he did not. And that is what makes his survival theory stronger than a random miracle. It gives him method. If those hidden spaces are real, and if they were built as part of the silo's deeper survival design, then Bernard surviving is not about luck, it is about preparation. Now, here is where the whole thing gets even more unsettling. What if Bernard did not survive alone? Because surviving a collapse like that is one thing, navigating it with perfect timing is another. The episode seems to suggest that there are parts of the system still functioning beyond what ordinary people can see. That means someone or something may have been ready for exactly this scenario. Maybe there were protocols. Maybe there were hidden allies. Maybe there was a built-in chain of protection designed specifically for the kind of people who hold the deepest knowledge. The source material pushes us toward that possibility, too. Bernard was never the sort of leader who would gamble his life on one room, one sequence, or one clean outcome. He plans, he secures exits, he anticipates collapse. So if the system itself was designed with fail-safes, then he may simply be the first character we have seen fully benefit from them. Now, I want to pause on one more important idea the episode raises. If Bernard had actually died, who really benefits? At first, it seems obvious. The rebels gain hope, Juliette gains space, and the old order collapses. But that is only true if chaos is good for everyone. For Bernard, chaos in the open could actually become useful if he is operating underneath it. A leadership vacuum makes people unstable. Rumors replace facts. Groups begin acting on partial information. Fear spreads faster. And in a system built on information control, that environment could be easier to exploit than the previous one. That is why I think his disappearance may have been more powerful than his presence. It lets the world above him tear itself apart while he remains one move ahead. So when I pull all of this together, here's where I land. Bernard's survival does not feel like a twist the show came up with late. It feels like the payoff to a hidden question it planted the second it refused to give his death any real closure. The hidden spaces beneath the silo support it. Sim's behavior support it. Bernard's entire personality support it. And the way the episode presents his return supports it most of all. This was not a miracle. This was design. Before I wrap up, here's the fast-fire version of what this episode is really telling us. Bernard's return is being treated as something bigger than survival. The lack of emotional finality around his disappearance was intentional. Sim's measured behavior keeps the possibility alive that he knew more than he said. The hidden underground spaces likely existed as contingency infrastructure. Bernard's real power has always come from controlling what everyone else thinks is true. And if this theory is right, then the most important thing Episode 4 reveals is not that Bernard is alive. It is that he may never have been out of the game at all. But anyway, that is my breakdown of Bernard's survival in Silo Season 3, Episode 4, and why I think the show may have been quietly building this mystery for longer than most people realized. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Do you think Bernard planned his own disappearance? Or do you think there is still one bigger piece of the puzzle we have not seen yet? I'll catch you in the next one.